Your life is mostly decided by what you do after dinner. Not the big goals, not the morning routine you keep rewriting, just the small nightly choices you pretend don't matter. You call it winding down, but it's really just extended consciousness with snacks. Your brain never clocks out. Your body stays half on. And somehow, you're shocked you feel bad the next day. This video isn't about discipline or becoming a better person, because that would be exhausting. It's about a few night habits backed by science that work whether you're motivated or not, which is ideal, because you're not. If you like this kind of calm disappointment, you can subscribe. What matters is which habit is quietly costing you the most sleep without you noticing. Habit 1. Write tomorrow's single priority. Why does your brain suddenly decide to solve your entire life the moment you lie down? You're not anxious exactly. You're just mentally hosting a very unproductive meeting about tomorrow that nobody asked for. And the funny part is, it's not stress doing this, it's vagueness. An undefined tomorrow keeps your brain alert in the same way an unanswered email does. It doesn't feel urgent, but it also refuses to shut up. So you replay conversations, invent problems, and plan hypothetical futures where you somehow fix everything at once. Very efficient, very useless. Writing down one single priority for tomorrow sounds insultingly small, which is why it works. Not a to-do list, not a life reset. Just one thing that actually matters. Your brain sees clarity and goes, "Oh, we're done here." Like a bored security guard locking up. I avoided this habit for years because it felt too simple, which should have been my first clue. Once your mind knows what tomorrow is for, it stops pacing the room. And when the pacing stops, something else finally gets permission to happen. Habit 2. Use a warm shower and consistent skincare routine. Most people think sleep starts when you close your eyes, which explains a lot. In reality, sleep starts earlier, during the part of the night where you're still pretending you're awake and functional. Your brain needs a signal, not a speech. A warm shower works because your body is very literal. Your core temperature goes up, then drops. And that drop quietly tells your brain, "We're shutting this down now." No affirmations, no intention setting. Just biology doing what it's been doing for a long time, before productivity content got involved. The skincare part isn't about glowing or looking like someone who drinks green juice. It's about repetition. Same steps, same order, same timing. When you repeat a pattern enough, your brain stops arguing with it. It recognizes the sequence and switches modes automatically, like muscle memory for being tired. I used to skip this because it felt unnecessary, which is what you think right before you scroll for 40 minutes instead. Once your brain associates certain actions with sleep, it stops negotiating. And that's usually when you notice how loud everything was before. Habit 3. Avoid screens 60 minutes before bed. If you're not tired at night, but somehow exhausted all day, this part is probably involved. Phones don't just keep you awake, they keep your brain employed. Every scroll is a tiny assignment your mind didn't ask for, but also can't ignore. You tell yourself it's relaxing, which is interesting, because nothing says rest like absorbing 10 opinions, 3 emergencies, and 1 deeply unnecessary argument about strangers. Your brain stays alert because it thinks something important might still happen. It's wrong, but it doesn't know that. There's also the blue light issue, which sounds fake until you realize it suppresses melatonin, the hormone that politely tells your body it's time to shut down. So instead of drifting off, you lie there replaying nothing in particular, wide awake, confused about how this happened again. Turning screens off an hour before bed feels dramatic at first, like you're being punished. Then something weird happens. Your mind slows down. Not instantly, not magically. It just runs out of things to react to. I avoided this habit for a long time because it meant being alone with my thoughts, which felt dangerous. But it turns out most of the chaos was coming from the screen, not me. Habit 4. Finish the last meal 2 to 3 hours before sleep. Late night eating feels harmless because it's quiet and socially accepted, and usually happens in sweatpants. But biologically, it's the equivalent of telling your body, "Actually, don't shut down yet. We've got one more project." When you eat right before bed, your system stays switched on. Digestion is work, not emotional work, not self-growth work, just very physical, resource-heavy work. So while you're lying there hoping to recover, your body is busy breaking down a meal it didn't ask for at that hour. Repair gets postponed. Sleep gets lighter. You wake up feeling like you technically rested, but spiritually did not. The 2 to 3 hour gap isn't a health flex or a discipline test. It's just enough time for your body to stop processing and start transitioning. Think of it like closing tabs before shutting down a laptop, instead of letting everything crash at once. I used to ignore this because eating late felt like a reward for surviving the day. And to be fair, it is a reward. It's just one you keep paying for the next morning, which would be fine if mornings didn't remember everything so clearly. Habit 5. Prioritize consistent, sufficient sleep. Most people say they value sleep and then treat it like a negotiable suggestion, something you respect in theory, but cancel the moment anything slightly interesting happens after 10 p.m., which is how you end up calling exhaustion a personality trait. Sleep isn't just rest, it's recovery. That's the part that gets skipped when nights get short or inconsistent. Your brain and body aren't using that time to relax. They're fixing things you broke during the day without noticing. Memory, focus, emotional regulation, basic human patience, all the invisible stuff you miss when it's gone. 7 to 8 hours sounds obvious, which is why it's easy to ignore. But consistency is the real issue. Going to bed at wildly different times trains your system to stay alert, just in case tonight is another surprise. So even when you technically sleep, you don't fully shut down. Late nights feel productive in the moment because the world is quiet and nobody needs anything from you. The cost just shows up later, quietly, disguised as low energy and bad decisions. Protecting your sleep isn't about optimization. It's about not making tomorrow harder than it already wants to be. At some point, nights stop feeling like a problem you need to solve and start feeling like a mirror you keep avoiding. Not because anything dramatic is happening, but because nothing is. You do the same small things in the same order, and then act surprised when the same days show up again. I did that for a long time, very confidently. What's uncomfortable isn't that these habits matter, it's that they matter quietly. There's no moment where you feel yourself becoming more tired, more scattered, more impatient. You just notice one day that everything feels heavier than it should, and you can't trace it back to anything specific, which is convenient because then nothing has to change. And honestly, none of this guarantees anything. You can fix your nights and still have weird days. Life will continue to be unpredictable and slightly annoying. This just removes some of the unnecessary friction you keep mistaking for personality. Once your nights stop fighting you, something else becomes obvious. How you spend your time when no one is watching starts shaping you in ways you don't expect. Not just at night, but everywhere else too. The things you casually repeat eventually introduce themselves as who you are. That's probably why certain hobbies end up changing people more than any plan ever does. Not because they're impressive, but because they sneak up on you and rearrange things quietly, which is a strange thing to notice, and maybe worth sitting with for a minute.